The other thing that you will sometimes have to do is to build a user interface where the user is going to interact. I'm going to show a quick example of one here, just so that you're on the same page as to what we're talking about. But this is a typical form interface. So there's some kind of menuing over here where I can expand and contract windows. And then there are places I can type specific things in. There are radio buttons that allow me to select what it is that I'm trying to actually do. And then there are buttons that actually tell it to start. This is a very common user interface. You see it every time you try to log into something. You're going to get a login window. You're going to get a place for your username and a place for your password and a submit button. And that's exactly what we're actually going to draw. We're going to draw a login window in both of the languages so that you can see what that looks like. This is obviously quite different than just drawing arbitrary lines because you're allowing the user to interact with the form. So that's what a form is. So the next question is, of course, how do we do all of this same stuff in C#? And the answer to that question is it's going to be a lot easier because, well, again, it's just easier in C#. So what I'm going to do is I am going to go to the designer window, and I'm going to bring back up all of the windows that I need. So I'm going to turn on all of these different things. The one that I want is the object browser. And what else do I want? I need code window, the class view. I had all these turned on earlier. All right. Call hierarchy. I don't think I need that one, but I have it now just in case I do. Okay. So here is my form. And I need to move that window because it's totally in the way. I'm going to pause and get this into a sane state, and then I'm going to come back to you. I have to do that in this window. Really what I needed to do was hit stop on the program so that I got back to the correct view. I don't know why it was being so weird. All right, so what we have over here on the left is the toolbox with the common controls. And literally the way that you do this is all with drag and drop. You can code it manually if you want to, but there's really no reason to in C#. So what I told you to do over here is you're going to start by dragging a panel from the toolbox onto the form. So we're going to scroll down until we find panel. There we go. I'm going to drag that over here, and that gives me a panel. I can make that a little bit bigger. Life is good. Now I'm going to do a couple of labels. So I'm going to grab label 1 and label 2. It does give you some lines that tell you that things are lining up correctly. And I'm going to need some text boxes, which are called, they're not called text boxes, are they? They are. They're called text boxes. Go figure. So there's 1, and there's 2. And then I need a button, and that's going to go in here somewhere. Cool. Okay, now I need to actually set all of the attributes to what I want them to. So I'm going to click on the first thing, and over in my attribute window, I have a name, and I have some text for a label. With a label, it doesn't really matter. So my text here is going to be username, colon, and then I'm going to click on label number 2, and I'm going to make that password, colon. So life is good there. For my input field, the name does matter because the name is what I'm going to refer to that input field as in the actual code. So we're going to call this username randomly, and then there's nothing else that I need to do for this one because that is just a text box. You can obviously change everything that's in here, including the colors, the background colors, if there's default text in there, the location, how thick the line is, if it's dashed, if it's dotted, and all of those millions of things that you can do. This guy we're going to call password. There is no text field versus password field in C#. The way that you do that is there's an attribute called password character, which you can set to a star. And now when they're typing in their password, instead of it showing the actual character, it shows a star because that field is set. All right, so that should all pretty much work. So we're going to do build, and then we're going to try and run it. And I still have my canvas up there, but that's fine. So I should be able to type in Enda, and down here, if I type in my password, you see that you get lots of stars like you would expect. If I press this button, absolutely nothing happens because I haven't told it what to do. Okay, so how do we go about doing code on the button? Well, over in, this is the design window, over in the text window, and if you can't get to that normally, you can come in here under View and choose Code or Design. I'm going to add a method to deal with my button click, which I would have expected it to put the default one in there, but it didn't, and I don't really know why. There we go. All right, so if I double click on it, it goes ahead and fills in, hey, you're probably going to want to write an event handler for this, so let me go ahead and give you the code. Very nice of it. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did before, which is I'm going to put another hidden block of text down here. So how do I do that in this case? I'm going to drag another label over here. And this time I'm going to give this label a name because I'm going to need to be able to overwrite it. What I'm going to call it is, let's call it response. And I'm going to set its text, which right now says label 3, to nothing, which has it basically disappear. It's still there, and if you need to get back to it, because it'll hide because there's nothing there, if you tab, you'll eventually get back to it. So I'm just in the box and I'm tabbing around to get to the various places. Cool. Okay, so to be clear, what's happening is when they press this button, I'm going to want it to take the text out of here, and what I called this was username, and I'm going to want to write it into response, which is what's down at the bottom. So back over to my code window, I'm going to create a string. I'm going to call result, and I'm going to say it gets username.text, that is the answer that was in the text box, plus the literal string attempted to log in, just so that it works the same as the Java example. And then finally I set response.text equals to my result, which is what I just calculated right above. So this is that label, which is called response, which currently is empty, and I'm setting the text of that label equal to this string. And this string is simply made up by taking something out of the username box and adding in this literal string to it. All right, we're going to build, and we're going to hit run, and I'm going to type in Enda and something into the password, and I'm going to hit the button, and it says Enda attempted to log in, just like the other one. And obviously you could move around all of those things. You could put this up at the top, you can put background colors on it, you can do a million other things, but I just wanted you to see at least one example of where you would interact with a form and have it put some information somewhere on the screen so that you can see it. Okay, so that explains how you do it, that explains the event handler, which I just typed, and that concludes everything that I have for you today.